Hello and welcome to the Social Work Race. Yep, I've set up a podcast called the Social Work Race. It has many connotations, but we'll go into that another day. Welcome to this podcast. We talk all things social work. This channel is a support for social work students, those doing their ASYE, prep for ASYE, if you're newly qualified, and also for the seasoned social worker. I will tell you a little bit about why I've set this podcast up. It is because it was difficult to find a resource that combined all of these elements, looking after a range of social workers in their various stages. It's been a challenge to do that. And so I set this up so that everyone could just locate this channel and use it wherever you are as a social worker. I mean, I'm looking at supporting even students whilst they're doing their assignments. I mean, this aims to be an all-in-one service. So thank you for joining. I promise you that this will be an informative, educational platform. We also aim to deal with those controversial topics, and a lot of it keeps cropping up in the news and in society, such as racism and discrimination, disparity, all of which I've experienced personally as a black male social worker and also working in various other services within social services. And I do this from a personal narrative and the narrative of those who we will work with on this platform. The plan is to have professionals, service users, laymen, and also colleagues on the show to really give you the perspective of social work from where they sit. And the thing is that because you're getting that from all of society, you will get a rounded view, and it will support your work as well. This is a real good resource. Please share it with friends. Please share this with friends and know that. And if you want anything if you want to address, look at me, I'm getting my tongue tied here. If there's anything you want us to address on this channel, simply let us know. Today, though, this is an interesting one. And it will be interesting and an issue for the vast majority of us who are looking for work. It's how to get through interviews as a social worker. Now, this is a topic that, and I promise you, like at the end of this session, if you don't improve your employability just by listening to this session, I would be very surprised. Why? Because I have drawn this information from the internet. Google never gets anything wrong, right? I've drawn it from managers, and I've done this personally. I've learned the long way and hard way. So this should really kind of spear you ahead of the game, right? And just to put it in perspective, local authorities are sometimes, they're actually struggling to find quality social workers. Not only that, but the country is actually short on social workers. So then why would social workers struggle to pass through interviews? I've been made privy to some information. I've spoken to a number of managers on this topic from various local authorities. And, you know, when local authorities are struggling to find social workers, but also not quick to hire social workers of poor quality, and they would only know that you are poor quality from their perception of your interview, right? So yeah, we need the workers, but we can't put anybody in these positions. And as you'll find throughout these podcasts, social work is no joke. And I'm not trying to discourage anyone from this field, but social work is no joke. And so because managers know this, and because social workers are under a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, they need the right people in the job. And it's very easy to do your studies, go through placement, and then, find that you might not be a social worker at heart, or may not have that level of resilience, because it does take a lot. But hopefully this will help you. And it's not just about this session, but the upcoming sessions will help you prepare for that experience. Yeah. So here we go. I'm going to give it to you real concise. Well, as concise as I can, to be honest, because I tend to yap on, and hopefully I won't drown you with all of my dialogue. But here we go. The main thing is this, right? And I'm going to take you through some examples. The main thing about your interview, when it comes to performing in front of two people who will be interviewing you, is this. They want to know how you apply your experience, whether it's direct or indirect experience, to the question. All right. So they are looking for a lot of examples. Now, I don't mean a lot of examples per question, but each question is going to require, for the most part, an example of how it's applied from your personal experience. They really want to see how you will hit the ground running. All right. Or if you run when you hit the ground. So again, everything is about applied experience or transferable skills. Now, I did not know this when I started. And so there was a number of interviews I went through, and I'm thinking, well, I smashed that. But as I went on, and now and again, they will call me back and say, this is why you didn't succeed. And it was because and they all said the exact same thing. You didn't give enough examples. That was it. And so I learned after about 3 interviews, actually, let me focus on the examples. And there are resources out there on the internet to show you how to prepare for interviews, but it just slipped by me. And this is something that I think and the thing is, I have a wealth of experience, but I just wasn't aware that they wanted examples. So I was answering the questions, but without enough applied experience, right? So let me take you through some questions that they will ask you, for example. And these questions have come up for me, and I found them out there as well. Here we go. An experience of how you would resolve conflict at work. Now, the truth is, what if you've never had experience of conflict at work? Then you could transfer some of your personal skills. Do you know what I mean? Let me go for another one. You're going to need to have relevant legislation knowledge to the job. So if you're working in children's services, you will have to include, please do not forget, this is the basic, some knowledge of the Children's Act. All right. If it's in adult mental health, for example, which is typically where you'd go with adults, then it would be maybe the 2005 and the Mental Health Act as well. You're going to need to just have a reason, not intensive knowledge. They don't need intensive knowledge. Do you just have knowledge of the relevant legislation? And so with the Children's Act, primarily, there are different sections, Section 17, Section 20, Section 47. All of these, just have a brief or broader knowledge of them at the very least. And it's not hard to just kind of touch up your knowledge on that. You're going to need that. Experience of supporting people. Therefore, all of you would have had your placement experience, yeah? Mention and type it in. Like, I go on my Google Drive and I store this information, and I answered what I did was I answered these questions in a document, yeah? And this would allow me to prepare my answers reasonably quickly whilst being interviewed. And obviously, due to COVID, a lot of interviews are online now. So, I would have had my answers right next to me and they wouldn't have known. But I had them to mind because I've rehearsed them, which is something that we have to do. One thing I would have done as well was that I would have read the Ofsted report summary from the local authority that I'm applying to. And then at some point in the interview, I would mention or ask questions around it. So it'd be, for example, a local authority I've worked at before had unsatisfactory for staff support. Yeah. So they had really good service user support, but poor staff support. And so I would ask, I would say in an interview at the end, any questions? And I'd say, yeah, look, I read the Ofsted report. Can you tell me like how you now support your staff better? What systems do you have in place and stuff like that? And it's how you want to word it, but you could refer to the Ofsted report, and that shows them, of course, that you're reading. Guys, this is not a lot of reading. This is all prep that you have to do. I mean, unless you know someone who's going to give you a job, how do you get a job if you can't show that you have some knowledge, some relevant knowledge, you know? Here's another question that has been asked and many times with me. How would you prioritize your caseload? So an example of that could be, well, and this is actually with me anyway, I have a pad that I keep my notes on, and I also use a digital diary. I also use it at times. If I was in the office, I would always use Post-it notes, which are really helpful for me to make quick notes on. And then as they're stuck on the screen or in my book, I throw them away when I've accomplished certain tasks. That's my management system. And I made that very clear. And that was a very good answer for me in that particular interview. Here's another question. Would you be prepared to make home visits? Do you have a problem with that? Some of my cohort do. So when I say cohort, I mean people I studied with. Some of them do not like doing home visits. And that's probably in social work. In the vast majority of social work would require home visits. And if you're working with children and families, this is where a lot of the most stressful work comes from, is when you enter someone's home. Or even if you feel safe. They may have a dog, they may have lots of weed smoking in the home, they might have a volatile member of the family in the home. The home might be well known for volatile, violent, and aggressive family members. Are you comfortable doing that? Now, you're not expected to do that if you're not safe, but but you will come across a lot of volatility in the job. Are you prepared to do that? You could say yes, even if you're not, but they want to know. So you'd have to answer that question. Here we go. Where's the next one? An example of how you manage time. How do I manage my time? Well, me personally, I tend to get up an hour or two earlier before the day starts, maybe 6:37 maybe, and I'll do an hour's worth of admin. That's me. And then I start my day. So I do work more hours than I'm contracted to, yes, but that's only so that I can stay on top. So if I don't do that, I'm going to struggle. That's me. A situation, this is one that will come up. Describe a situation in which you handled a difficult or aggressive client. And you describe that. How could you describe it? Here I am off the cuff right now. Okay, here we go. Well, I take a step back, let them know. Well, I take a step back. I let them know I'm here for you. I let them vent, get their frustration out. I let them know that I want to help them and I've heard them. I don't guarantee that it will work, but that's the best that I can offer. That's the kind of answer I gave. And it's an honest answer. Now, social workers or managers are not lightweights. They can tell when you're being honest. So being honest in your answers is important, okay? Don't give them a real nicely crafted script. Be honest, but, we can't offer guarantees. We do our best. So that's the way I do it. I put my hands up to show that I'm not a threat, to chest level, and then let them vent. What are your strengths? You need to know your strengths and how you apply them, right? So one of my strengths is that I am very good at one-to-one or face-to-face work. So when I meet families, I'm very good at connecting with them. So I have a strength, and I've showed them how it's applied. I'm very good at developing working relationships with people. But then they may ask, which has been asked, what is one of your weaknesses and how are you working to improve that? And they tend to ask you, how are you working to improve it? So with me, then I would say, because at the time when I remember in my last interview, I was thinking, how do I answer this question? And I said something to the effect of, well, I know that my professional language needs development. And you know what professional language means is, there's a lot of jargon. And my professional writing skills has been developed over time. And I want to constantly work on that. Or you could say, I want to learn how to apply more theory to more of my practice. You could say, I want to work on my time management skills because it has been an issue in the past. You can be honest, because then they will support you in that. So social workers aren't looking for perfection. They're just looking for, how are you going to work in the real world? Because it starts immediately. So you've got to be able to identify your strengths and weaknesses and let them know how you're working on it. So you could say, however, in my placement or in my last job, or when I was working in a cafe, at first because maybe you've never worked in social work or social care, then you could say, when I worked in a cafe or as a cleaner, initially my timekeeping was a problem, but I managed to, and I want to continue to work on it. And it has improved over time. Do you know what I mean? Be honest. And that's another point I wanted to make here. I've got it down in my bullet point here. Be honest. Don't try and pull the wool over their eyes. Draw from past experiences, because they will know your past. You know what I mean? Because they will give you a random scenario to address. So a mum has come in and called you, for example, and her daughter's missing, and you're working in children's services. Her daughter's missing, not been seen for the last 12 hours. What would you do? Now, you may not know all of the steps and say that in the interview. I don't know all of the steps. But what you could say is, I don't know all of the steps, but I recognize that is a high risk situation and it needs addressing. I would question the mother on the last time she saw the child. And if I was unsure, I would call my manager. Now, that's the worst case answer, but it's an honest answer and they respect it. They want to know, do you recognize the risk? Do you get what I'm saying? Do you recognize that risk? And if you do recognize the important areas of the question, that's what they're looking for. Are you slightly savvy for this role? I want to throw this in as well. Get ready to be disappointed. Okay. Do not expect to get any of these jobs. All right. That you apply for. Don't get your hopes up, really, is what I'm saying. Rather, what I recommend you do is go in there real humble, but real confident at the same time. Do you think you could the ability to do that simultaneously is an interesting challenge. Really, I am good enough for this job. It's whether they can see it. So I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be honest about my answers. I'm going to be confident, and let nature take its course. Some people say the universe, let God do his thing. But you've got to believe in yourself. You've got to believe that you can do these jobs. You can't be afraid of interviews because the job is much harder than the interview, okay? So consider the interview a stepping stone. Be positive. Be honest. But believe in yourself. Believe that you can do the job. And that will affect how you answer questions. You will answer questions in a light that you are inspiring confidence in the interviewer. I can do it. Some of the questions, I've been in an interview, I think my last interview was, I didn't know the answer to a really kind of key question. And I said, I don't know, but I could learn. And I got the job. Yeah. So those are the main tips for interviews. You've got to be able to have the right mindset. Okay. And that mindset will inform how you answer. But just as importantly, make sure that you use transferable experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be in social care, but apply your experiences to these scenarios and answering all of these questions, and you will get somewhere. Remember, there's a shortage of social workers, so you can do it. This is for you. All of these tips I've learned, hopefully you can use them. Please share, please subscribe, and live what you know to be true. Take care, people.